Spring is now upon us, and many times it seems like we were dying to get out in the garden and do some weeding. Well, I actually think there's something quite therapeutic about weeding. Me personally, I sometimes enjoy gardening, and I say sometimes because I like to do it when I want to do it, not because it needs to be done. And I suppose there's some keen gardeners that would tell me that I actively neglect my garden, that perhaps I don't look after it the way I should. In the winter, I just tend to leave my garden alone and let nature take its course. It's too wet, it's too gloomy, nothing really grows anyway. But when spring arrives and everything starts to grow at an alarmingly rapid rate, I certainly begin to notice. Every time I pull up outside the house, I start noticing all these niggling things, all these weeds that shoot up so much quicker than the bedding plants. Weeds that strangle other pretty flowers that are meant to be there, keeping them from blooming and showing their true vibrant colours. So of course, when I'm ready, I go out and I get armed with my weed removing tools, and I pull and I dig and I scrape all at the bedding section to make it all look pretty and neat. But to be honest, I never really get to the roots, never really pull them all out. I just like it looking all pretty. And the last time I went out weeding, I couldn't help but think about weeding and the therapeutic qualities to this task that I so often put off. But more than that now, weeding could actually be seen as a metaphor for things that are deep-rooted within ourselves, the things that spring up occasionally and overpowers us, overpowers our blooms. They're the weeds that strangle us, they make us feel unpretty, untidy. Those little things within ourselves that we never really seem to address. We never really do get the roots out, do we? I do, cut them. But you never really dig the root out, because even if I did, weeds have a habit of growing through the strongest of concrete slabs. As something of a novice gardener too, I sometimes struggle to know exactly what is a weed. You see, where I used to live, in between my house and next door, there was a plant that always encroaches on my garden. And it's relentless. It doesn't smell great, but it does have lovely purple flowers on it when the weed itself is in bloom. I've no idea whether it is actually a weed or not. Maybe I just cut it back off my land because it grows straggly and untidy. But funny how the actual definition of a weed in the plant is actually a plant that's just growing in the wrong place. And botanically, there is no significance to the word as weed when growing in a place where it's wanted, because then it's actually not a weed. Now, there is a reading by Unitarian minister Robert Fulgham about the use of dandelions, about they make a spicy salad, and bees favour them to make the most precious honey. And who would have thought that all of that could have come from something that niggles me so much? Dandelions. You seem to mow the lawn, you knock their heads off, and I swear some of them just hide again, just after a day of mowing my lawn, and they seem to magically appear again. Weeds. I imagine all those uses that people have had over centuries have found them must have a purpose. And of course, they're not the only useful plants. I also think there's something quite magical about dandelions that really should be admired. The way they gracefully change or evolve to become them dandelion clocks that we all used to love as kids. And then yet, I've never made them see that transition, have you? They're seeds that cling on to dear life until a child or a gust of wind carries it away on the breeze and continues to make way for future generations of the species. It's funny that when we're out walking, my son always picks me flowers, whether they be daisies, dandelions, buttercups. He never sees them as weeds. His child's innocence sees them as flowers, pure and simple that, flowers. An object of beauty, an object of nature that can brighten up someone's day just by being given as a gift. Perhaps if some of our inner weeds are addressed, really dug out from the roots, I have to question, would these be then succeeded by other niggling weeds? When we address our inner niggles that are strangling our inner beauty, are we not joining in the eternal quest for perfection? Have you ever seen a lawn without weeds? A bowling green, perhaps? It is an absolute wonder to behold. But I also can't help thinking that this carpet of sheer green also looks a little bit unnatural, almost like the lawn wasn't being true to itself, like it needed the weeds. I've often said I quite fancy this artificial grass, but I'll only get it when somebody invents it with weeds in it. So what if we are meant to be laden with weeds? We're meant to have all those deep-rooted personality traits that annoy other people, that annoy us about ourselves. Dandelions on our spiritual lawns. Maybe we're not meant to be bowling greens after all. So many of us work hard to weed out all our imperfections. But perhaps those imperfections are what makes us whole. And in fact, I think I can be so bold to use the word perfect, more natural. I guess what I'm trying to say is that inner weeds, our imperfections, are what in fact makes us human beings. Sometimes perhaps we need to stop striving for perfection, as from an aesthetic point of view, and embrace our inner dandelions. After all, are dandelions not probably one of the most useful weeds that the earth truly knows?